Hi guys, Brett here from Hearns Hobbies, and I am joined by Andrew Selvaggi, and we have got a world exclusive.
Yes, we do.
Before we get into that, Andrew, tell us a bit about yourself, who you are and what you represent.
Yeah, well,
morally.
Oh, I'll do a little bit spiritually as well.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Brett. I'm Andrew Selvaggi. I've been in the racing scene for over 20 years now, and I'm race team manager of Team Associated in Australia.
Yes.
So I've been running Team Associated since I started racing, and got the fortunate opportunity over time and through connections to eventually represent the team and build the team over here. So yeah, that's me. My home club's Keilor, and I'm a keen racer and also love all things tinkering. So.
Yeah, well, the talent pool over at Keilor is quite deep, isn't it? You know, I mean, we've got some of the fastest guys in the country over there. You've got yourself, Ray, Lockie, Jordan, just to name a few of the fast guys hanging out over there. So it's a really good place to call our local. I don't get out there as much as I wish I could, but every time I do, yeah, it's really good. And obviously you guys are flying the AE flag really high, and it's something that we do love here at Hearns. So tell us what you're in for today.
Yeah, so so AE proud through and through. There was a period there where I had a Lossy XX4, but that was when we didn't have a four-wheel drive. So I get a hall pass for that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. If you haven't been under a rock or on the moon or completely offline or on a social media ban, you may have heard there's a new two-wheel drive coming out from Team Associated.
Yes.
And it was about January 1 when we saw online Associated dropped a little bit of a teaser.
Teaser pics, didn't they?
Right?
They're
Yeah.
really good at their forward marketing, I'll give them that.
Yeah, I mean, some people might remember the B4 when that came out. That was a stealth teaser photo of a car silhouette in an aircraft hangar. And on the 1st of Jan, or just before the stroke of midnight, Associated dropped a couple of hints, something around 7 days, and then the next day they dropped some videos on the heritage and lineage of what a Team Associated is. Obviously the RC10 two-wheel drive buggy, and the success of that. And how they've gone through the evolutions, and how every two-wheel drive they've produced has actually won a world championship.
Yep.
And then the penny dropped on January 2nd, and Team Associated released the brand new RC10B7 and B7D.
Yep, and that's what we've got here, the new RC10B7D. And like I said, this is a world exclusive. There's probably only a handful of these in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was one of 12 that were on track. I sheepishly came in here, I think on January 3rd, asking for some cans of paint, and I couldn't say what they were for, and it's quite clear what they were for now. But yeah, so this was one of 12. There's about 16 going around now, and kits are starting to ship out of the warehouse as we speak. So it's a cheesy thing, but 2 weeks.
That's right, fortnight. Give us 2 weeks.
14 days, 2 weeks, half a month, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But
soon.
Yeah, soon. Absolutely soon.
Probably by the time this video is out, the car will be out. Let's be realistic.
Yeah.
But that doesn't save us from doing a world exclusive here at Hearns. Like I said, we've got Andrew, the Australian Team Manager. He's got his brand new prototype B7. Probably didn't even come with a box or instructions, did it?
Did not come with a box. It came with an underscript brown box. I actually have some of it here. It was actually a box that was it's a kit box turned inside out. So it turned up to my door, and I'm like, what is this? I didn't order anything.
You knew something was coming. You would have been waiting for it. Don't be so sheepish.
I got an email saying something's coming. I didn't know what it was. I was hopeful that it was an RC10 clear, but
now you got something you can race, even better.
Yeah, I know. You can't race that thing?
Well, you can try.
I don't know. I watched that video with you and Tony, and I reckon you could.
He's gonna try.
He could turn some laps with that thing.
He's gonna try.
Yeah, but no, I got it with just bags and a brown box. I didn't get a manual. Started putting it together without it, and then
well, you've built a couple before, like
just a few.
You
Just
probably know how to screw a RC10 together, mate. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I have to admit there were a few screws that I've gone, oh, is it a 12 mil or a 16 or a this or that? And I actually had to call up the engineers and say, hey, can you guys send me a draft manual because I don't want to screw this thing up. You know.
Well, no, right? Leave it for on track.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, let's have a look under the hood. That's what the Americans would say, right?
Yeah, under the hood. Yeah.
And that is a new body, by the way. It looks like not like the B6.4 was the outgoing model.
Yeah, correct. I mean, the kit bodies of days past, I mean, they've always been kind of whatever they can throw on the car. Usually you seldom see people running the kit body. You know, they'll run a J Concepts body or a Proline or an aftermarket body. But Team Associated have really gone all out with the aero department on this one. They've got an all new kind of high flow body there. If you look at the overhead, you can see the kind of sweep of the rear end. That's kind of a very J Concepts thing where you've got a cab forward and then high flow rear. And they've also introduced a all new wing as well. So I don't know if the forward facing camera can get it there, but you can actually see there's the 7 on that wing.
Oh, they're sneaky, aren't they?
Yeah, it's
so
a little bit of you know, guerrilla marketing there. It's pretty cool. So that's a all new.
I'd still snap it in half, mate. Doesn't matter what it says.
Oh, these things are pretty sturdy. But
you've seen me drive.
That's why the old cars used to come with like the nylon wing, like
right.
the heavy plastic wings, right?
That's right.
But no, it's a brand new body. They come in a standard thickness and a lightweight body,
yep.
And also a new redesigned 7-inch rear wing. So the cars used to come with a 6.5. This comes with a 7-inch wing because
half inch is bigger, right?
Yeah,
big is better.
Every inch counts.
Apparently,
every inch counts. Yeah,
and I like the little front wing.
Yeah,
I've only seen them with I don't know, with on the back, but you said that was actually an option part, and that still is for this one.
Correct.
So you run the high mount front wing.
Yeah.
Because you do have the big problem in two-wheel mod generally of trying to keep the front end down on the straight.
Absolutely.
So, and that little wing doesn't look like much, but it does help every bit.
Yeah. So interestingly the front wing on the previous generations of cars was actually an aftermarket thing originally.
Yep.
J Concepts made they originally came out with the upper wing mount, then they came out with the lower wing mount, and then all the brands said, hey, why don't we make this as a part of our kits?
Yeah.
But this one's been redesigned, repositioned a lot more further forward. The old ones weren't as far forward. They were far back and really inefficient. You know, to be honest, they didn't do a lot for the aero. They just kind of added some weight to the front end.
I reckon it looks like a good bumper bar now. It protrudes further than a bumper bar, doesn't it?
It does. It's a good catcher, to be honest. But yeah, no, they've
scoop up the dirt when you flip it on the
exactly
triples.
right. So yeah, no, they've redesigned this thing. It does make a difference. I have done it back to back. You can feel it. We don't have an upper wing yet, so we'll wait and see when that comes out.
Fantastic, mate. So whip the body off. Let's have a look.
Yeah, let's get it
off.
off.
In there.
Yeah. So I will say this is the first time that we've had a body off of video of this, you know, run through worldwide. We have seen, you know, some people that tune in to Spencer Rivkin, Dustin Evans, and the team footage, but they've never really done kind of a body off walk through, run through. So this is the first, and hopefully first of many.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but yeah, so the all new B7 platform. I mean, a lot of people will remember the B6 and go, you know, it conceptually looks the same, yeah. Right?
It's a two-wheel buggy, right?
It's a two-wheel. The motor's in the middle, you know, the battery's somewhere there, the speedy's there, and the servo's, you know, kind of around there. And you go, well, it's just a bit of an update. And you'll notice from the, I don't know if you got a chance to watch the videos that were released, you know, through a part of the B7 series. It was heavily spruiked that this was a complete ground-up redesign.
Yep.
And I can say from building this thing, 97% of the parts are brand new.
Brand new.
Yeah,
brand new part numbers.
Yeah. So there's only a few parts that translate over,
yep.
which we can go through, but it is a complete ground-up redesign. If more so than, say, when we went from the B5 to the B6.
Really? Because that was a huge jump then, too,
It was a big jump, yeah. I mean, the B6 was an evolution from the B5. They took a heavily modified B5 to the Worlds in Yatabe, and Spencer Rivkin won that in two-wheel, but the base of it was essentially a B5 with carbon towers, a different gearbox, and all of that stuff. So it was just kind of a natural evolution of that car. The geometries were very much the same.
Yeah.
They're unchanged. The big difference with this car, while it looks the same, everything's different on the geometry, from the shock angles to the kingpin inclination to the caster to the weight distribution to the chassis flex to the amount of gears in the gearbox.
Well, let's start at the gearbox and let's start from the middle.
Let's go.
And then let's work our way forward, because I can't really see that the motor's pushed further forward, but I can see how far the battery is hanging forward, and that is hard up against the motor, where usually there's quite a pronounced gap on a modern buggy. And you do have quite a little bit of length in the chassis, because you've still got plenty of room for your ESC and your battery adjustment there.
Absolutely.
Without ramming right up onto your low profile servo. So you talk us through it. We can zoom in a bit.
Yeah, let's zoom in.
And you can start with.
Yeah. So why don't we get into? Look, we can have a look at the transmission and the difference there. So we can look at the distance, or let's call it, how things in weight distribution are spaced apart.
Yes.
So while it looks like the motor's relatively in the same position, a lot of people, the numbers were kept under secrecy for a long time, but
of course.
This motor's about 8 millimeters further forward.
Okay.
So the motor itself is quite a fair amount further forward. It's also slightly inset as well, so they've centralized it a little bit. They've taken the opportunity to redesign that gearbox, and it is a 5 gear. So we're not at the 6 gears of the RC10, the original.
Getting back there.
We're getting there.
Next one, that'll be the B7.1.
Yeah, we'll go 8 gears, 9 gears.
That's right.
Yeah. So they've introduced this new gearbox here. Conceptually, it's very much the same. So you've got your slipper on one side, your slipper adjuster on this side. I've got
Looks handy with the fan there.
It is. It's good for cooling. Very, very good for cooling.
Cooling the slipper spring.
Yeah, exactly. But you can see here, so you've got your slipper, and then you've got your motor there. But the big difference with the new transmission is the new motor mount. So the reason that they've gone so far further forward with this is obviously for weight distribution, to get the weight a little bit further forward. But they've also taken the opportunity to lower everything as well. So what they've had to do to lower everything, they've introduced those 2 extra gears into the gearbox, so they can get that motor mount lower, shift the motor further forward, and kind of get the overall profile of that gearbox.
Have they changed the internal ratio of the box?
No, it's still 2.6.
Yeah.
So it's essentially, if you leave your input and your diff, whatever happens in between, kind of, as long as you're using the same gears, all good.
So it's fair to say that it's still the same diff gear and lay shaft.
It is a new lay shaft.
A new lay shaft.
Yeah, so it is a
Pinion size.
Yeah, so it is a new lay shaft. It is a new diff itself. So the part number is different. Yeah. Mainly because it uses the HD outdrives.
Outdrive, yeah.
So they use the larger dog bone joint. So the pin and the ball will fit into the outdrive. Yeah. So it is for all intent and purposes the same diff. Yep. With new outdrives. Yep. But it is a whole new part number.
We've got a new motor mount there, which is nice blue. Yeah. And they're using both bottom mounts on the motors.
Absolutely.
A first for AE, because they're traditionally like sort of 180 degrees out. Yeah. But that's really common on road cars. Yeah. So it's really good just to keep the weight down, keep the motor as low as possible. Absolutely. And also keeping the flex down. Yeah, 100%. So it's really good that you mentioned that, because it is the first time that we have had a motor mount like this. What we can do is we can probably take that pinion off, I reckon. Take the pinion off. Oh, secret squirrel business here.
Why don't we do that? I mean, I'll probably be the first person to drive it.
If the pinion falls off, that's right. If the pinion comes off next race. Yeah. So
you can see there with the pinion off.
7.5 turn.
So that is 8.5.
8.5.
8.5 turn, yeah. So that's a Ready M4 with 8.5 turn with an option rotor, low torque rotor.
Ah, that's why I was reading that.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see it there with the pinion off a little bit more, but you can actually see that the motor mount's quite low. So it is actually just a right angle motor mount. Yep. It has 3 screws that sit behind the spur gear that hold it in, like how our old motor plate was, but it just kind of right angles out at the bottom there. So a lot of people were concerned when that came out that you're only securing the bottom of the motor, but it's not moving whatsoever. Partly due to the gearbox design. The gearbox itself is scalloped out, so while we don't have a waterfall, that's the other biggest change, is we no longer have a waterfall or a waterfall option with this car. The gearbox behind actually is curved like a half moon, so it comes out under the motor. So all of that there is quite rigid and supported in flex, so absolutely no movement in that thing there.
That's really good, and they've gone for proper battery mounting tabs, which I like to see.
Absolutely, yeah. So
instead of those rubber things, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, they were actually Australian designed Berserk invention. Those there with the rubber gasket. The kits used to come with the kits came with just a plastic mount on, kind of thumb screw in. Yeah, like plastic brace. But yeah, Associated have gone with the tab system this time. I mean, these are across a number of other platforms.
Yeah, and I really like it because again, from on-road sort of heritage, it really doesn't detract or add to your chassis flex.
Absolutely.
You can have a tiny little bit of battery float in there, and you can let the chassis move around the battery
100%.
without having everything torqued up. It'll, like tightened up and sort of adding torque or flex into the chassis before you've even put the car on the ground.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're going with things like floating servos and almost floating motor mounts, but then you've got a battery in the middle that's torqued down and kind of a part of you take that out of the flex range, and it's just not good for your chassis. But yeah, they've got the tabs. I've got a 4800 low profile in there, but the car actually does come with optional tabs if you want to run a standard height battery as well. Some other cars come with just one height and you've got to cut it down or space it up or down. They've kind of just thrown the second ones in there. I've got a low profile 4800 with just a weight plate under there. That fits comfortably. So
easy then.
Yeah, and what you do also get is you get these optional battery cradles.
Yes.
So it gives you a half, they call it a half offset.
Yep.
So if you just want a little bit more finite battery adjustment, which honestly makes a big difference in high grip. When they're wanting to get 0.2 of a weight distribution change, you also get a half zone there as well. But
are you using corner weight scales at the track these days?
Yeah, so we are absolutely. So as the first thing that we did when we got this car, myself and Raymundo basically nerded out, got this thing on corner scales, understand the weight distribution, understand what changes do what, so moving things closer together or further apart, understanding what weight distribution we have, and then even things like measuring caster jack weight and all of that type of stuff and all of those changes. So corner scales are a big thing now in off-road, especially as we're getting higher grip.
Yeah, well, the higher the traction, the higher the G you're putting through the car, so you need your chassis set up to go fast, really.
Absolutely. And there's always, you could see that there's a lot of time and development put into this platform, and a lot of people have seen from the videos, it was a 2-year effort to develop this car. Develop mainly...
well, they were trying to make an Associated go faster.
Well, I mean, it's hard to beat perfection, right?
That's what I was trying to get at, right?
But no, I mean, one of the things, the hallmarks of Associated is they make a really good tool drive, and they generate grip where there usually is none. And so when they did the development of this car, they really wanted to keep that as the hallmark of the platform, but take it to that next level. And I mean, some of those videos you'll have seen them talking with some of the engineers, Kyle Clinforth and Billy Hayden, who are the two lead engineers on this car. Kyle, who came to Associated under a little bit of, stealth, I'd say, skunk works style. He got employed by Associated, came to them with an idea of a car, and he was from on-road. And so where you start to see all of these on-road things like the motor mount, single piece servo mounts, things like that, those weight distribution changes, the different front end, they're all things that have been pulled from on-road. And so what they've done is grab what are the best things from that and what can we jam into this car to make it better.
And it's the way that the tracks are evolving. Like the modern off-road track, can be called an on-road track with jumps. They got a lot of traction. They're really quite smooth, and they're often not loose dirt anymore. So, like Kilo, for example,
Yeah. I mean, you'll see the tyres I have on here. These are a bar style tyre. They're a clay compound, so you notice a kilo when you're going around the track. You actually hear the go-kart tyre chatter.
Yeah.
This weekend we'll be up at Wodonga, and that's a traditional style rips and pins.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. The cars are slowly evolving more to this higher grip nature of running, but they still want to keep the tuning range of having the hallmark of this thing really work just on low grip as well.
Yep. All right. So looked at the battery, looked at the motor mount. Now we're coming up to. You've got like a speedy mount or an electronics mount.
Yep.
Now is that adjustable, or is that like a flex option, or is that a weight option? I can see that that's got carbon in it.
Absolutely, yeah. So this is one of the parts that is not changed from the B6. So this is a transfer over part. So the electronics tray. So this one here, the car comes with an aluminium ESC plate, we call it. And that's purely just for the convenience of being able to lift out and drag and drop your electronics in. But also they've added some adjustability in there with different ESC plates. So there's carbon, aluminium, steel. Obviously as you go up they get heavier. I use carbon just because that's
looks cool.
It looks cool.
It looks really cool.
And we're doing some tuning with some weight, and so I want to take some weight off the front end of the car for some of our conditions, and so I've gone with the carbon one. But anyone who has the old ESC plates from the B6 series, they're an exact match. The B6.4, B6.3 series, they drop straight on.
And you said it's an all new servo mount.
It is, absolutely. So you'll see here, this is a black plastic. It's very hard to tell because we've got a black servo there as well, but it's a new one-piece molded servo mount itself there, so we can see it there.
Yep.
It's got quite nice actually. It's got the Team Associated logo there on there, which is really cool. And then it just hugs around the servo, and it's a two-piece mount. So you've got 4 screws holding the servo, and then 2 screws there holding that in. And then these little kind of countersunk areas are for an optional under servo weight plate as well, which we had in the old car, in the old 6.4.
Yep.
But that is a new size, a new design, so that part doesn't transfer over. But the car comes with the ESC plate, which you can see those 4 screws there are for, but it does not come with the servo weight. That's optional. Not a lot of people have been running them as yet on the few cars that are out there.
Yep. Fantastic.
But yeah, all new, very easy to use, and yeah, super nice. The new black plastic material that they're using is some people may notice that actually here the ESC cable management clip there, that used to be a grey colour. They have changed the composite of the plastic as well, so it's quite a.
Does that go through to the arms and plastics as well?
They've kept to Associated's standard moulding and their proprietary plastics that they use there, and the methods for injection moulding there. But they have just changed the composite of these parts here, so it's quite a lot stronger than the grey plastic that we used to have as the original top plate for this, and the tower guards and ESC clips and things like that. So it is quite strong.
And I can see you got some pretty blue steering bell cranks. You have to move the car gently. Now is that prototype parts, factory parts, B6.4 parts? What's going on there?
Yeah, so that's a good one. Out of the 3% of parts that transfer over to the new car, these are the steering bell cranks off the B6.4.
Oh, beautiful!
And B6.3 series.
That's why you can have the pretty blue ones.
Exactly right. So
because you have them in your parts bin.
Exactly right. Yeah. So they are the same part number. We can take a wheel off there. Why don't we do that?
Get right in there, mate.
Take a wheel off. Why not?
We'll end up stripping it.
We can do. I'm cool with that.
It looks to me like it needs a rebuild anyway.
Yep.
Oh, that's just typical,
Yeah. Factory slop.
No, it's beautiful.
So yeah, so you can see the aluminium bell crank there. Get down a bit. There we go. Yeah, perfect. So whilst the whole front end steering geometry is new, angles are updated, things like that. The transfer part over is actually aluminium bell crank. So
and the Ackerman arm too, is that a new part, or is that off the old rack as well?
so yeah, that is the same part as the old rack as well. So the bell cranks and the rack are the same part.
Same part.
They're the other couple of percent of things that transfer over. So while we're at the front end of what other things do transfer over, the axles that come with the car. So these are the factory team optional axles where you can change the hexes, but it comes with a 5mm axle that's come with every one of our two-wheel drive buggies for a long time. That part is the same as well. So this is the factory team optional part, but the part that comes with the kit is the same.
Titanium axle.
It is, yeah.
That looks very pretty.
Yeah.
Brings out the blue in your eyes.
Well, this actually comes as standard titanium. I've anodized that.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah. So I get a little bit crazy and bored sometimes.
Obviously.
So yeah, I'll do some anodizing in my downtime.
Wow.
If I have any.
But some cars to fix, don't worry.
Yeah. But yeah, so the things that do transfer over that we've almost been through the whole thing is the ESC plate, the bell crank, the steering rack, and the axles are the things that transfer over. There's a few other things like screws and shocks, but for all intent purposes, everything else is brand new.
Well, there's nothing wrong with AE shocks for the past 20 years.
Yeah, they've been the gold standard, pardon the pun.
And I see that it's probably got an all new shock tower, nice carbon fibre.
Yeah.
It's got the very modern, like the bumper, which is really nice to save getting dirt and crap all over the top of the shocks.
It definitely does.
It's also required for most carpet and Astro tracks.
Yeah.
They have that on there.
Yeah.
You got your pretty front wing, which is nice.
Yep.
Lightly scuffed for that factory look. I'm really surprised to see you don't have an alloy camber link. I can only assume that that's because it's an all new part and you didn't have one in your parts box.
We've never had one.
Never, don't like them.
No, it's not. I mean, there have been option parts. I shouldn't say we've never had one for an associated car. Companies like RDRP, Rudd Dog, they've made them before. Exotech.
AE don't as an FT part, right?
No, we've never really had one. Similar to some of the other aluminium parts, they've been tested over time. But we find that the plastics are the flex characteristics of the car, and as soon as you start adding a lot of aluminium in areas that wasn't intended or originally designed, it can change the car quite a lot.
And these turnbuckles look beautiful, nice. JC that you've anodized? Is that your?
No, so that's JC factory burnt blue.
Oh.
And they're the turnbuckles themselves. They're 48mm. Don't quote me on that. 48mm turnbuckles.
All round.
All round. So
it's handy that AE have done that because you only have to carry one packet for spares.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the car does come with steel turnbuckles. I've done the option upgrade there. And yeah, you can use any brand upgrade, but they do have a factory team option to them as well.
They do.
What I might do is take off that front wing for you.
You're going to take off the front wing? I'll take off this front wheel for a bit of symmetry.
We can take off that front wheel. I'll take off the front wing, and just so we can have a look at the tower in all its glory.
Look at that, you've done that before.
Been there, done that. Played this game before. Yeah, so you can see here the newly designed. We'll kind of turn it up. Which way are we going to go?
Which way are we going to go?
About that.
Let me get a zoom, and that's really hard at this sort of. Oh, there we go.
There we go. I like that.
So what are we looking at there?
Yeah, so it's a fully redesigned front tower, front end. So you can see the new cover that Brett was alluding to here.
Skid plate.
Yeah, it's a skid plate.
That'd be my most used. Most worn part if I was to drive one.
So this itself does kind of clip off, but it's not held in with any screws.
Yeah.
So it's a one clip-on piece. I have a feeling with a lot of our tracks here, this will cop a beating, and we might see a lot of cars without them on. But for carpet, this is the thing to have for if you roll over and not having any carbon to catch any of the pile. But yeah, brand new front tower clip, new wing mount here, and then obviously everything else is brand new. But
we might as well take the opportunity now to have a look at the narrowness of the front
Yeah.
The front hinge pin.
Absolutely.
Take the bumper bar off the bottom,
Yeah,
or what?
yeah, we can do that, I reckon. So, as Brett alluded to, the big thing that's changed on this car is in the opportunity they've taken to redesign the geometry of the car. They've gone with what is called a narrow pivot or a long arm setup. The last time we saw something like this is probably as far back as we might go as far back as the
91s, 93s.
Yeah.
Like the 91 Detroit
relatively,
car,
yeah.
that was a big step, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
They had this fashion all of a sudden of going from short arms to getting longer.
Yep, and then between the B2 and the B3, they went to the same length front and rear arm to kind of even that out. The B2, I think, had a shorter rear arm. I might think, and then they made it longer. So you can see here they've got it comes with a 0 degree front bulkhead, and that's aluminium or aluminum.
So is that for kick up?
Yeah, correct. So the
So
chassis
not for roll centre. It doesn't have a roll centre adjustment. That's just for kick up. So you can get these like in what, 2.5, 5.
Yeah, so it comes with a 0, and it'll come with a -2.5 or +2.5 option, like we had on the old car. It does have roll center adjustment. You might be able to see this here, and this here is a little washer that goes and slides underneath the bulkhead, and you can use this to tune your pivot height, so to speak, and so that there will just slide out. And so that's it's very hard to see there, but it's 1 millimeter.
That's 1 mil.
The car does come with 2 of those, so you can tune to an option of 2 millimeters. The team were finding that on high grip like carpet, they were liking the bulkhead as close to the chassis as they can. But as we go on dirt, they need to lower the roll center. So it does come with an optional roll center adjustment that you alluded to there.
That's very cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. But I mean, I've brought some parts here just as a comparison. I won't divulge numbers or anything like that, but just to give a sense of how much narrower this thing is. This is the aluminium bulkhead or aluminum bulkhead for our US viewers of the B6.
Yeah.
So you can see the size difference there between the two, and then I've also brought some arms as well between the two, so you can see here if I were to overlay a B6 arm on that, you can see the size difference there. So it's quite a fair amount.
And that's obviously going to make the chassis that whole bit thinner.
Yeah, correct.
Because obviously going to, introduce a different flex characteristic on that whole part of the car.
Absolutely.
So there's probably a lot of different, I'd say, thickness and milling around that area of the chassis compared to the old one.
Yeah, what they've found is the narrowness of the chassis here is they need to make it narrow for actually getting around the track and scrubbing on jumps. The wider they have this section here, the more that the car will scrub. So you get wear marks on here. For those that have the old car, you'll notice that there would have been wear marks all the way along here. That's from the car bottoming out on jumps. So what they...
or me hitting the concrete.
Yeah, concrete curbs. Concrete curbing, whatever it might be. But what they've found is that making this whole section narrower, more from flex, not so much flex, but more for that characteristic around jumping and on-track performance, makes a big difference. So here as long as you've got your upper supports, so you can see the design of the bracing, of the kick up of the chassis, that's all unchanged.
It's got a front sway bar mount, I can see.
And correct, yeah. So in there, nice tucked away and hidden. That is brand new. So I'll try and get a good angle on it there for you. Yep, there we go.
Little C shape.
So you can see it in there, the C shape under the bell crank. So that there is a new kind of touring car style, not on bearings, but it's a pivot style roll bar mount. And they have that for the front. They also have one for the rear, which we can go through when we get to the rear of the car. But essentially they've narrowed the whole front end. They've kept the kick at the same. The kick is still 22.5 native on the car itself. But yeah, as you alluded to, quite a lot narrower at that front end, and rightfully so, longer arms as well.
It's just a matter of time. I mean, you've raced 1/8 off-road as well, that is one of the biggest factors on your 8 scale car is the scrub out here. The
Absolutely.
scrub out here massive because they're so wide and beefy.
Yep.
You can really feel the car sort of dig in at inopportune moments.
Yeah.
So while we're also looking at the front end, let's have a look at the new, what I'm thinking is a new caster block and steering block.
The new caster block and steering block. So I'll try and kind of get it there if we can.
Yeah.
So that's the other big change from the front end of this car. We'll come over a bit there.
Yeah.
There we go. Happy days. Look at that.
That is super. That is macro.
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
You can almost see where I've nipped off the plastic moulding on the spindle there. So it is a redesigned front end steering hub and spindle. So the standout thing that most people notice is a vertical ball stud mount. This one here. So we used to have the ball stud mount as a part of the caster block.
Yeah.
As a part of the caster block. And so it was a horizontal mount. So what we couldn't do was adjust the height of that outer mount. So kind of giving you the finite adjustment.
Yeah.
So they've gone to a vertical ball stud. It also changes the flex and bind characteristics when the car is moving under load. So they've gone with a vertical mount there. And they've also, we'll see if I can twist it here just to kind of get some, you can see a 0 there.
Yep.
So that's a 0 plate. So there will be option plates that come out where you can change the overall length.
And it does come with that carbon.
It comes with a carbon plate.
Yep.
Yep.
Nice touch.
Absolutely.
And that changes the length towards the center line of the kingpin.
It does, yeah. So the idea will be that they'll come with optional, 1, 2, 3, potentially minus, depending on which way we need to go.
So you can adjust obviously the roll center, the height.
Yep.
On the outer.
Yes.
And also the length on the outer, and also the length on the inner, which is a very common feature.
Absolutely, yeah. So all of these things come into play when we're talking about kingpin inclination, scrub radius, and then also roll center as well. So all those things come into play.
And this would be a relatively first thing for, I don't know every buggy, but this here, this, like you said, this kingpin inclination, you can see how that's offset.
Yeah.
Traditionally, even in on-road cars, touring cars these days, four-wheel drive cars, we use 180 degree kingpins.
Yes.
In fact, we have tapping tools to align it to make sure that we're actually building the cars properly. But I can see here they deliberately put a step in it, which is somewhat going to give you like active caster, I suppose, would it?
Yeah, so typically in a lot of...
and that'd be like a 12th scale sort of kingpin.
Yeah, correct. So typically they go less kingpin inclination for, say, like passenger cars, things like that, because they want a nice kind of neutral feel. As you start inclining the kingpin there, so you can see what Brett's talking about, that offset. It essentially, when we talk about kingpin inclination, it's that angle there, so kind of horizontally going there. And when we talk about caster, it's the other direction. It's the kingpin leaning. It's the caster of the car leaning back. So what happens is when this wheel turns, it actually digs that outer wheel into the ground as we have more kingpin inclination. Yeah. So typically, and I'm trying to not get too nerdy here, and don't quote me on a lot of this. I've learnt a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff off Master Ray. He's the sensei with this stuff, right? Ask Ray Monday, his Facebook page. Gold stuff.
He's going to have lots of content for this car.
Oh, so much content. All the content in the world. But yeah, so without going into it too deep. So essentially, if we look at it, kingpin. We'll go to the front on camera here. Kingpin is this angle, and then caster is the lean back angle. Now, what happens when a car turns and we've got a lot of caster is that outside turning wheel will jack the rear end. So essentially, that wheel will turn and then jack and load the rear end of the car. So the opposite. So the outside will jack and load the inside, which is awesome for rear traction. That's why off-road vehicles run a lot of caster, right? Because we need to get weight on the rear tire. But what happens if you have 180 kingpin and you have no kingpin inclination, that front wheel there actually collapses and doesn't really do much. So as you start to give that some kingpin inclination, as that inside wheel turns, that's pushing down the tyre down into the ground, which is loading the other tyre as well. So you get the effect of the caster jack from the outside and the kingpin inclination on the inside. So then you actually start loading both rear tyres. So you get more even grip on the front, and you get a more even grip on the rear. So for off-road two-wheel drive buggies, it's a big thing.
Yeah.
So that's...
And like I said, this technology probably started, I think, probably 20 or 30 years ago in 12 scale pan cars.
Ages ago, yeah.
You know, that was one, and that, again, I think that was an RC10, I could be mistaken, who actually invented that kingpin inclination.
Yeah.
Way back, sorry, in an RC12.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an on-road thing, and it's definitely, anyone who's driven a go-kart. If you've tried to sit in a go-kart and steer it while it's stationary, because they have a decent amount of caster and they have a lot of kingpin inclination.
Yep.
So getting back to real world terms here, as Brett alluded to, this comes with optional kingpin adjustable steering spindles. So
they come in the kit, or that's an option part?
No, so they come in the kit.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. So you get.
So it comes with spare parts when you break it too.
Yeah, correct.
That will be a consumable part.
It is.
A steering block's a consumable part on my car, that's for sure.
So if we look at that's KPI 1, and then we'll look at KPI. Where are we here? I just want to use the same side so we can do a comparison, right? If we zoom in there a little bit, I'll bring them up. So you can see KPI 1 is very in line.
Yeah.
And then KPI 3, you can see that's quite offset. Right? And that's the effect that we're talking about there. So what does that mean? Usually KPI 1 has the number steering feel. It won't turn in as hard. And it will feel kind of very neutral on the track. And as we go up in KPI, it'll give you a more sharper steering response.
More aggressive. More aggressive,
correct. So, you know, things like for carpet, and the higher grip we get, we want less KPI. And that's purely to tame the car down, right? You know, it does affect things like scrub radius and all that, but I don't want to get into that today. But yeah, so I have a feeling in a lot of our off-road stuff, when we need some steering and we need some, you know, the caster jack, and we need the kingpin to play in our favour, we'll be operating in the KPI 2 and 3 range. So this is something we haven't had before on any of our team associated vehicles, and it's something I'm personally really excited about. I did some testing with it at Kilo the other day.
Sounds like something else to tune.
Well, you know what it's like, right? We find a baseline.
Ask the fast guys what they're using, try it, and it works for me, but it doesn't, because you don't drive the car anywhere near like they do.
I just my mantra is ask Ray.
Ask Ray.
And then usually you find out the hot tune. But no, we legitimately do work on these things. We'll get a new car. We've been working on this at the track for a little while now, testing, seeing what the baseline is. And our intent is to get a base set up there out to the Australian customer and then the global customer.
Of course.
And so at least we know we can say, throw this on, you'll be in the zone. This is very kit setup, and at Kilo it's on the money. At the moment, so but yeah, we've gone off on a flight of fantasy talking about kingpin inclination and all that fun stuff.
And the shock package, is that relatively the same? Because obviously that having a longer arm now, different pivot points, it's going to have different arm mounting, different piston speed potentially.
Correct. Yeah.
Is it all like relative to the outgoing model, or is it sort of like new pistons too, new oil range?
For all intent purposes, let's call it same.
Yeah,
same. So same front and rear shock package. The car does come with some slightly different pistons, but we're still at our 23mm front shock and our 27.5mm rear shock. Same shafts, 23mm shaft as well, and 27.5 rear shaft as well. It does come with grey 13mm, so these are the 13mm shocks that we're all used to now, that everyone seems to be going to. You know, I mean, Schumacher started that, right?
Schumacher started that. It won't be long before we're doing 16 now, huh?
Absolutely.
How long before you're going to put 8 scale shocks on your car?
I know. Well, I think that's the next step.
Someone's going to do it.
I did see a very funny video. There was a driver in the US that had put his RC8 shocks on his buggy, just as a joke. But yeah, no. So 13mm shocks comes with grey front and white rear 13mm Team Associated springs.
So they're at the softer end of the range.
They are at the
softer end of the range. But this is on the dirt car, so there's 2 versions of this package.
Correct.
There's the dirt version and there's the carpet version?
Well, it's just the B7. So that's the high grip, we'll call it.
Yep.
And that comes with things like the roll bars, the gear diff, and slightly different springs. But let's call it everything else is almost the exact same.
So same chassis length.
Same chassis length. Yep. Everything like that.
Same gearbox. Like they haven't added sneaky gears in
there. No. They haven't added a 7th or 9th gear set.
So there is only one gear case for this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So. Between the two vehicles, it's tuning parts. Let's call it tuning parts. There will be option parts that come in the future, factory team options. But for now we've got the exact same car, albeit with different springs, roll bars, and out of the box tuning parts, and the one chassis length. Beautiful. So that's kind of a nice thing to have for the customer. But yeah, last thing on the front end. One thing they've done with the caster block and spindle there, it's very hard to see, but they've put ball joints in this caster block itself.
They have too.
So yeah.
So no more like a hat and bucket,
yes.
shim and bucket sort of arrangement.
So the hat's still there.
Is it?
So if you see that, I don't know how good we can get it in the light, but you can see.
Well, let's see.
Let's see how quick. Oh yeah, there we go. That's money. Look at that. So you can see here the hat is still there, but that little silver thing there is actually a pivot ball.
Okay.
And that sits within the caster block itself, and it just means that all the way through the stroke here, and as you're putting your steering loads, real heavy steering loads, nothing binds.
It's not gonna. It's gonna have different bind characteristics.
Exactly right. So it's let's call it. The front end is one of the biggest changes on this car, and it's the redesigned. Caster block.
With the reduced surface area though, because obviously it's shaped like a ball, do you think that's going to affect the wear a great deal? Do you think it's going to get sloppy?
Potentially, a lot of that loads, it's not got a lot of that load going through it,
I'll show you my TTO2, mate. That's got the same front end. It's got the same front end.
I could imagine it will. It will be another area that'll slop out for sure. But
they all do anyway. It's just a wear and tear consumable part.
Correct. Yeah. So I mean, previously we used to have the hat section.
Square section.
But what we're starting to find is that the block was actually spreading. Through load of going up and down.
Especially in four-wheel drives, huh?
Yeah, correct.
They buckle the front ends.
Yeah. So essentially what they've done is they've just distributed the load over a larger point and made it a little bit beefier as well.
Did it come with all the trendy blue like roll center shims, or is this out of your spare parts bag?
Yeah, no. So no, it comes with all of those. These ones here are slightly larger OD washers, but they do come with the standard blue. The blue washers there for your roll center tuning, but yeah. So all of the things that come in the kit, your adjustables for your axle height, you can still do that. Adjustable spindle for your kingpin inclination, and then
there's still sleeves in the caster block as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it still comes with 0, 2.5, and 5. So yeah, theoretically, you could go as low as 20 degrees of kick if you have the -2.5. Block and 0 caster insert, and you can go as high as 30 if you do +2.5 and a 5 degree insert. So 30 degrees of total caster. So that comes with the kit, and then obviously the optional bulkhead will tune things up there.
Fantastic, mate. Well, let's take a look at the rear end. What's going on back there? Because it's all new too, isn't it?
Yeah. Why don't we take those tyres off? I reckon.
I'll start with the wheels, and then you can start pulling your gluing off.
Yeah.
Did you glue these ones yourself?
I did.
Nice and firm, nice firm inserts. Are they JC?
J Concepts, yes. They're the J Concepts Dirt Tech inserts. They're brand new. With silver compound tyres, ready to
attack kilo.
Ready to rip it at kilo. So what are
firm?
Yeah, they break in relatively quickly. So what I'm going to do, yeah, definitely. Any softer than that, the car starts folding over quite a lot. I'm taking off the rear wing here as well, just so gives everyone
one new rear wing mount.
Yeah, correct. Nice little things to have. They've got a new kind of connected rear wing, button essentially that goes on the top there. That used to be a factory team option that comes with a kit. This little wing spacer is the same thing that's come with most kits since forever and a day.
So you can change the rake of the rear wing, the angle.
Yep, yeah, so you can
without adjusting the height, because we have height adjustment too, I assume.
No, so this doesn't have a height adjustable wing.
Okay.
On our four-wheel drive, it has a -2 and a standard height.
Okay, yep.
But that's a different wing mount.
Yep.
So, but yeah, as you alluded to, you can have it at 0 degrees, 3 or 6 degrees wing angle.
And I like it. That is nice and firm. That is something that even I would struggle to rip off first lap.
Yeah.
And it is a carbon. I thought I was saying, is it a plastic shock tower? But no, it is actually carbon. It's got the
carbon. Yeah. So
it's got the skid plate on there.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'll do is I'll just turn it up there like that, so the viewers can see. It is a new wing mount itself. So for those that remember, on the old two-wheel drive, we had 2 wing standoffs. And they were separate. They were mounted on the tower in this fashion, it had 4 screws, and then you could use the optional bridge in between the factory team kind of stiffener, so to speak. But what they've done here is they've gone with a rear wing, a one-piece rear wing mount. 3 screws, and yeah, so 2 from the front and then 1 to secure in here. And essentially what that's done is made it quite rigid.
Yeah.
And this is what
I'd have to go another step further. I'd use oversized long bolts and put nylox on the back.
Yeah, why not? Yeah,
wrench it on like on my 8 scale.
Yeah, just have 7 mil nuts there.
That's
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, so new wing mount. Definitely not going to break a lot of them, if at all. The old ones used to warp a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There must be massive drive shafts now.
You would think so.
You would think so.
They are. So if we look at the rear end of this car, so you know,
look at it's gone like somewhat looks narrow compared to what I would call a conventional.
Super narrow. Yeah. So if I
super narrow.
So if we here we go. If we look at an old arm to a new arm, I mean it's very hard to tell here, but you know the old arm is finishing.
That's the kingpin there. Yeah.
Yeah. No. To there, so we've got it's quite a fair amount longer arm. That's a 75mm arm, by the way. So that was our optional 75mm arm, and then we had our 73mm arm, which was even shorter than that, which would finish pretty much back here, almost inside of the
So you'd use the short arm at like a lower traction environment?
Yeah, so the shorter arms came with the B6.3 and B6.4.
Yeah.
And we use those with the wide pivots, and that would give the car stability.
Yeah.
In some of the lower grip conditions. So it would kind of lean into the rear and hold, whereas the longer arm kind of rolls a little bit more. And well, it's sometimes the short arm, and it's the reason they've gone with a different geometry with this car. Sometimes a short arm can make the car really peaky in grip.
Yeah.
So it will load up real quick and then transfer to the front and do weird things. Whereas they find the longer arm, narrow pivot, lets the car sit in the track and roll and just drive a bit smoother, and it generates more natural grip, we'll call it.
Oh, natural.
Natural grip.
Grip,
natural.
El Natural.
El Natural grip, yeah.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
Yeah. But yeah, so what we'll notice here, one of the things that's changed, obviously the longer arm on the rear end, and the chassis length. If a lot of people will hold the old chassis up to the new chassis, you go, geez, this chassis is a lot shorter. But the big difference is that the D-block overhangs this chassis.
So the D-block's mounted to the transmission?
No, so yes, the D-block is mounted to the transmission. So you've got some vertical screws that go up and into the back of the transmission. It's very similar to how it was on the B6.4, but that just had some courtesy countersunk screws that sat at the back, kind of almost where these are here. So imagine the old B6 chassis used to extend out to here.
Yeah.
But what that does is you've got 3 mil of chassis sitting out there ready to be scraped on jumps and things like that. This actually creates a nice little step, so you're not scrubbing here, obviously. Means you can jump higher, you can jump faster, all that type of stuff.
And you've got a cute little rear bumper bar.
Cute little, and it does say in the manual, optional.
Optional.
It is purely optional, this bumper bar.
Is it?
But yeah, so we've got longer rear arms, narrow pivot. So to give a little bit of an example here.
And it's so how long is the dog bone length? Is it like 91 like the previous car?
69.
69.
Yep. Yeah. So it's from pin to the center barrel of the CV joint.
Yep.
It's a 69 mil bone. So we're not going to be. I don't think the micro zoom is that good.
Well, I believe you. I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah. But what people will see is we're used to having the etching on the bone there saying 69.
Yep.
Some people will remember that the B6, 6.1, 6.2 came with 67s, and then in the newer cars they went to the 69s.
These are HDs.
Yeah, so these are HDs. These are
these kits, or are these out of your special secret squirrel parts bag?
Or I wish I could say they were out of the secret squirrel bag, but no, definitely these come with a kit. So to what we were alluding to earlier, why the diff is different.
Yeah.
Diff is different.
That's right.
Yeah. They're HD. So what that means is it's the same outdrive pin and ball that goes into the outdrive as what we have in the full drive. So the B74.2, and it just means you've got more surface area, less chance of snapping, things like that. So it's a heavier duty HD. So yeah, they've same length bone. But substantially longer arm, substantially narrower pivot. So if we look at
new rear hub,
yes, it is a new rear hub.
Because it looks pretty beefy.
It is. It's the.
Is it the four-wheel drive one?
It is in the same style as the full drive, but it is different.
Yep.
The four-wheel drive uses a different depth axle.
Yep.
So the four-wheel drive hubs, if you notice them, they'll be quite a lot narrower.
Yeah. That's why I thought it looked so beefy across there.
Correct, yeah.
So those bearings are going to be super strong.
Correct, yeah. So they use quite a beefy bearing there. But the new hubs, the kit comes with two different hubs. Yep. So you actually get these ones here as well. So
in the kit?
In the kit.
Oh, get out of town.
Yeah. So you get a HRC hub.
High roll center, is it?
You got it?
Yeah.
Nailed it.
You've
done this before.
The other one's LRC, is it?
Yeah, this is standard.
Oh,
we don't want to get too
STD,
fancy. No,
right.
yeah. But no, the HRC hubs, they're about 3 millimeters higher. So if you're on carpet, you're running like 14 mil ride height, and you need to get that axle all the way up there. That's what they're for.
Yeah, and they're still using it
insert style.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can tune your axle height 0, 1, 2, 3.
And that's good for wear and tear because you can just buy like a set of bushes,
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't shear them off, but these are pretty beefy. You'd struggle to shear that off with and that's that alloy standard on the A's, isn't it? So you've got a lot of pinch, like across the surface area there.
Exactly. So you're
doing well to break that hub.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at the size of the hinge pin. Looks like you've taken out of your 8 scarf.
It's quite big.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're beefy there. But yeah, the standoff there for your camber length adjustment.
Yeah.
That there in the old car used to be black. It's now blue. Team Associated blue, let's call it. Blue is better. I think it was an old LRP term, wasn't it?
I think it's the current LRP term.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's no Tamiya blue. I'm not saying that the AE blue's ugly. I'm just saying the Tamiya blue's better.
Tamiya blue was more like a neon blue.
That's
wasn't
just a better blue.
Yeah,
I don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
I'm
not gonna.
I think it's the best anodizing in the world, and I'm hard. I'll stand here and argue about it, but anyway.
That's all right.
No, it's lovely. I'm sure it is very lovely.
All shades of blue.
Is that what's better than the 50 Shades of Grey you go on about all the time?
Tony Grey or?
That's right.
No, so we've got obviously some aluminium standoffs here to tune your camber link height, your outer height, and your overall camber link length. And then also we've got this was the similar design on the B6.4, which is an aluminium bridge for your inner ball stud mount.
And that comes alloy.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So you can get a sense that across the car they're starting to offer, let's call them upgraded parts as a part of the kit.
Well, it's definitely these parts here are under a lot of high loads.
Absolutely.
And obviously they probably would have tested with plastic parts and they would have thought there's just way too much flex and load on the car in these conditions.
Yeah.
So we just bite the bullet and put an alloy one in.
Yeah, the last time we had a plastic part on those was probably the B5, and that was the first thing that you did. You pretty much upgraded that. Yeah. Especially for our stuff here as well, because it's quite bumpy, quite you go and race at Knox or Wodonga, and
well, that's what you're going to rip off, isn't it?
Exactly right. Yeah, there's a lot of load going through those, but to your point about the rear hubs, those are redesigned. What they do have, and you may not be able to see it there, but they've got some courtesy grub screws.
I love that.
That hug the insert, so you actually
you can sort of preload the insert on the hinge pin. Is that right?
Yeah. So the hinge pin is meant to turn in the arm. So the hub's meant to be quite tight on it, and then it's the hinge pin that turns on the arm. So you're not slopping out that insert as much.
Yeah.
So you got some grub screws there that give you a little courtesy hold, which is nice. And yeah, a whole new redesigned rear hub, whole new redesigned rear end. I will say that the front and rear arms are close to the same length as they can be as each other. And the pivots are very similar as well, front to rear. So you can see they've gone longer in the arm, narrower in the pivot, even things out, balance the car out as much as we can.
Well balanced.
Yeah, exactly right. But you can see the narrowness at the front, narrowness at the rear, and then kind of I've had these sitting here for a little bit, but I've got two D blocks.
Yep.
One's from we used to call it the narrow rear end of the B6 series.
Yep.
And then when we went to the B6.3, we went to the wider pivot. So even compared to the narrow pivot, we'll go here, you can see how much wider that is. And that's the narrow. And if we go to the wide, you see how much wider that is.
Big difference.
Itself, yeah. So all the hallmarks of the geometry of the rear as far as squat and toe are the same. The car comes native with 1 degree of anti-squat at center and 3 degrees of rear toe. That's the magic of the rear end of the Team Associated.
Yeah.
And then obviously new arms, new rear tower, new geometry. I will say that the first impressions and feeling from the team driving this car, we were very fortunate. We've had both the Mondays drive the car, Jared Ment from New South Wales drive the car, plus some of the local guys here, Dan Collar, Justin O'Connell, and also Lachlan Williams from Sydney as well. They've driven it, and they've all said the biggest thing that they notice is how in the track the car is. Mm-hmm. It sits low. Yeah. It generates more grip, and it's very, very hard to describe, but it lets you know before it's going to roll. So if you get say Keilor turn 1 high speed, and you've got a bump there, you hit that, and the car will traction roll. Quite often, the car doesn't let you know that it's going to do that. Right? It just off you go over the fence. Yeah. Right.
It's one of my favourite moves, actually.
Yeah. That's why they got the car catcher there at the end there, right?
The Hearns side.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the really, really cool things about the car is because they've really lowered the CG of the car, center of gravity, let's call it. I think that's what it stands for, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So they've lowered the center of gravity of the car, they've lengthened the arms, they've narrowed the pivots, and what that does is the car's very mellow. It sits in the track, it stays low, and then if it lets you know that it's going to roll. It will say, hey, I'm just about to lift a wheel, and then as soon as you do a correction, it sucks itself back down to the track. That's one of the biggest things the team have said. They said
definitely on higher tractions. My biggest concern is in fact how it's going to develop traction on a low track, traction tracks. How it's going to develop, traction. So that's really, because that's obviously going to be the biggest drawback. All these features are aimed around, like I said, higher traction, high corner speed, low center of gravity. But often when we even go to dirt setups, we're trying to stand up motors or shorten tracks, trying to generate more traction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Completely different to the engineering behind this car.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really good to see if they've got it in the window, and I'm sure they know what they're doing. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I mean, we've done some testing already on some lower grip stuff, and the one thing that I will say is that the narrow pivot. Absolutely helps. It's a really big thing for those viewers that remember the B5 series, the B6 series before we went to the wide pivot. The one thing that did was generate grip. Yes, we have moved things further forward. Yes, we have lowered the center of gravity, but we've found with the all new geometry of the car, the new shock positioning, what it's enabled us to do is run softer shocks. So say at Keilor we're running 2 rates softer springs than what we would normally. and the car's fine. It
Yep.
doesn't roll around, doesn't do that stuff, but it generates more grip.
Yep.
So we can run the chassis and roll a lot softer, so we know softer springs generate more mechanical grip, and then you've also got narrower pivots which help as well. Then we can start doing things like shortening the car. What they've also done is given us as a little bit of a cool thing. We used to only have 2mm we could move the arm for.
Yep.
We can move that 4mm fore or aft.
That's cool.
So
that saves you taking the file to them, doesn't it?
Exactly right. Yeah.
And then
so,
weakening them.
Yeah.
Because that was a common trick that we'd do on some of the other cars, was to file the front of the arm just to push it forward to get the rear overhang of the transmission. You know, to get the rear weight, I suppose, over the back of the axle as far as possible.
Yeah, and a lot of that was drive bone sweep as well. So we used to get the weight over the rear of the axle,
That's right.
but also the drive bone was angled.
Yeah.
And so what that does is generate bind.
Yeah.
And bind usually means you're pushing the tyre harder into the ground. Oh, it's a friendly moth. Yeah. Bind means you're pushing the tyre harder in the ground. Tyre harder in the ground means more grip usually, right?
Absolutely.
But there's a different philosophy with this car. We've got the wheelbase adjustment, which is awesome, and we've got all the good things like we can tune toe into the car. There is there'll be some optional parts that come out that will be able to get us some more rear weight bias. But back to what we started the conversation with about the weight scales, we can get this car on the weight scales, front and rear weight percentage, to the same as what we had the old car.
Yep.
Within 0.5%.
Yep.
So weight distribution, we should be cool. And the all-new geometries, just out of the box, is generating more grip, to be honest.
Fantastic.
So, yeah. So,
well, I look forward to it. Is there anything else you want to educate me on the all-new RC10B7D?
I could spend a day just talking about it.
You love this car, don't you?
I love it. I love it.
What's your favourite part? What's your most favourite part on this car? One part you had to marry. What would it be?
The front end.
Yeah, you love the front
steering,
end.
Yeah, the ability to.
I've heard that about you. You're a front end man.
All about it. Yeah, it's you just got to have a car that has steering.
Yeah.
Right. And
that's if you can drive it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to be able to drive it.
Yeah. Usually, it's you talk to the really the best drivers in the world, and whether they be in RC, David Ungaro, or Michael Olowski, or Ryan Mayfield, all those guys, they said, "Give me a car that steers, and they can drive it."
Yeah.
Right? All you need to do is the rear to hang on. So I think what we've got here out of the car
is the car capable of that, you reckon?
The car is definitely capable of that. It has that feel where you can tune in the steering.
Yeah.
It stays low in the track. And you actually, this is one of the first two-wheel drive buggies where I felt I can get on power steering.
Cool.
And so you actually get on it. And normally with a two-wheel, you get on the power, it unloads the front tyre, and then you lose a bit of steering. This, you get on the power, and it holds the steer. So, yeah, that whole front end's an awesome new geometry. And yeah, I absolutely love it. Everything else is same but different.
Fantastic.
But yeah,
that is good, mate. Well, let's wrap this one up.
Absolutely.
That is fantastic. Well, that is an RC10B7D spec. This is Andrew Selvaggi, and I'm Brett from Hearns, and thanks for watching this World Exclusive.